but I think it's important now to just talk about the maritime risk exposure. So, I've worked with a lot of banks over the past year since COVID, and we've spoken about, what's your maritime risk exposure? And many financial institutions, it's hard for them to pinpoint exactly what their maritime risk exposure is. So this slide kind of does a good job of describing, basically, if you're involved in international trade, you're very likely involved in maritime risk exposure. So the statistics across the top, they speak for themselves. They're impressive in their volume, but what it's really telling you is that it's an ocean of data. 100,000 ships. When we talk about 100,000 ships, those are just the ones that are involved in commercial trade. So we're talking containerized goods and wet cargo. And with that, there can be any number of activities that they perform, and you need to screen not just the vessels themselves against these potentially deceptive shipping practices, but the companies that are associated to them. So I'm not going to list each one of them. The beneficial owner obviously speaks for itself. They're the ones who own the ship, but there's also the technical and ISM manager who crew and operate it and are in charge of safety. You have the charterer, and who's the commercial manager. So, as Colin referenced before, it gets pretty complicated when you're talking about due diligence on a vessel, because there's 7 entities that could be linked to this one vessel. And, you have, I guess it's worthwhile to just talk about the statistics around the risks, right? So if you, at any given time, want to screen against these 100,000 vessels, at Windward, we've done a couple calculations using AI against deceptive shipping practices. And we find anywhere between 5,000 to 7,000 vessels that are not necessarily sanctioned carry some sort of risk with ship-to-ship meetings or dark activity. And when you extrapolate that out and say, well, how many of these companies are connected to it? It's around 8,000. So I know I'm throwing out a lot of statistics, but the bottom line here is you have around 8,000 companies that carry some sort of risk that is not easily detected by just list matching against sanctions. And these 8,000 companies transport around 90% of the global trade.